You are listening to the Omar the Barbarian podcast, where we talk about what is best in life. Happy 2021, y'all. First and foremost, we made it. I got one half of the top men back in the building. Writer, comic book enthusiast, and industry veteran, my main man, Devon Sanders. Welcome back, bruh. Today, we are talking about our shared love of comics, how we got into them, what we love about them, the life lessons that comics can teach you, all of that. You feel me? Y'all ready? Because we about to get into it. Sit back, relax, and listen to 30 years of friendship, 30 plus years of comic books coming at you. Here we go. Do you remember the moment you fell in love with comics?
Yes, I do remember the exact moment I fell in love with comics. It was I can't remember the issue number. I was just looking at it the other day, as a matter of fact. I think it's like G.I. Joe 34 or something like that. It was an issue of G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe was everything to me back then. G.I. Joe was basically my Star Wars.
Mm.
And there was an issue where Ace, the fighter pilot, excuse me, and Wild Weasel basically got into a dogfight. As a matter of fact, the comic is called Dogfight. And the whole story takes place in the air with them basically trying to take each other out. In the back seat of each respective airplane is one of the G.I. Joe members. I mean, a G.I. Joe member or a Cobra member.
Okay.
So it's Ace with Scarlet, I believe it was, in the back seat of the Striker. Or was it Lady J? I can't remember. God, I got such a bad memory. But in the Cobra one, it's Wild Weasel and Baroness.
Okay.
And so they're fighting over the skies of Springfield, I believe it was.
Right, because that was the spot that G.I.
Right.
Joe, that was their town.
Spot.
Yep.
Right. And they're trying their best to kill each other in the air. And simultaneously, they run out of bullets. They run out of missiles to shoot at each other. And so they just pause and they salute each other and fly off.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, that was it.
Oh, that's fire.
And at the end of it, Baroness is like, you should have gotten them. You could have done this. You could have done that. And Scarlet or whoever it was, I can't remember. Damn, I can't remember that. Is in the back like, so we're just going to go back to the pit and we're just going to eat like sausage and bacon? This
Right.
is it? We're done? But there was this unsaid thing at the end of it where you knew that the draw that they had called was honorable, and that was enough for those two. And I had never been moved by anything like that before. Like, the storytelling was just insanely so good. The art was just perfect for what was going on in there.
Hammer was that dude, man.
Yeah. Hammer is that dude, man. He always will be to me. Like I'm not a big G.I. Joe fan right now. Like I'll always love it for what it was back then to me, but I'm not really in love with it the way that I am with other things. But the world that this man crafted is just incredible. Like, so to a degree, Star Wars, G.I. Joe will always be my Star Wars. Because I know G.I. Joe the way other people do
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So G.I. Joe, you said it was issue 34?
I believe so. I can find out.
Yeah,
But
because
yeah,
I
that was like
need to
one of
read
the
that, man.
yeah, that was
I
like one of the greatest comics of all time. It's easily in my top 5. And that was
got
the
to
one
read
where I
that.
was like, I want to be involved with comics for the rest of my life.
That's a great doing that. I got the goosebumps listening to that story, and it's cracking me up that we have similar moments in that. For me, it was G.I. Joe #6.
Okay.
That was not only the comic that got me into collecting, but made me want to draw them. And I remember I was in that was out. I was in elementary school when that was new, and there was a rival of mine, a guy named Robert Cassidy. He was like a rival in my elementary school, and I think might have been.
I love that you had a rival in the elementary
Oh, dude, man, you gotta have villains in your life. Yeah, man.
right.
Yeah, he was my. They in fact the school recognized that we pushed each other, so they made sure that we were always in the same class, all the way up through air quotes graduating and going to 7th grade.
Right.
But Robert Cassidy is the reason why I got into comics, because he brought G.I. Joe #6 to school.
Okay.
And the little crew that we hung with, he has this comic book, and if you had a comic book sitting in elementary school class, you were the man.
Right.
And so I'm like, man, in fact, I had never really, I'd see him in the turnstile when we went to what was People's Drugstore back in the day, is now CVS. I go in there and I'd see him in there, and I ain't care. To me, if I'm watching the closest I got to that was watching the 60s Spider-Man cartoon, or Spider-Man and His Amazing Friend. Like, I would watch that, or Super Friends. And that was the extent to which I cared, or if it was in a movie, I'd watch it. But now, G.I. Joe, I'm like, eh. So I'm looking at this, and he was really into military. Like, that was his thing. And now all of a sudden he has G.I. Joe #6. And I remember being intrigued by, because I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the cover is this split. You got Cobra Commander's his face shield.
Okay, I know exactly which one you're talking about.
And, right. And there's like reflections in and I'm like, who is
half Cobra, half G.I. Joe.
Yeah. Yes. I'm like, who is this dude? What is this? So this was, and I remember, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Stalker's on the cover in the Joe half. And I remember, you didn't really see a lot of black characters in those positions. And I'm like, okay, wait, so you got this dude with the mask, and you got this other dude, black dude with this rifle. He looked badass. And, and you got these other dudes with these, masks and cobras and what. And so it was a combination of intrigued by, I don't know what that is, but it looks dope. And my rival is getting all of the attention right now because he has this. I can't let this go. I must match what he's doing.
Right.
And so we leave class or whatever. And I'm, at that time, my uncle was working at Heckinger Mall, back in the day. And so my mom, and we go down to see him. He's working at a store that was called Variety Records, which I'm cracking up because that would be, they could reopen that today with all the, the popularity of vinyl, records now. You could technically reopen that franchise and people would frequent that and get vinyl records. But he was working at a record store, was the manager of it. And so we go down there to holler at him. And for whatever reason, I end up with her in People's Drugstore. Okay. And I see the turnstile, and now what's on my mind is G.I. Joe #6. And I said, well, let me see if they have it. So I start spinning the turnstile, and lo and behold, there it is.
You mean the comics rack?
The comics rack. Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's what the spinner rack.
Spinner rack. Yeah.
I'm saying turnstile, and I'm thinking that. So thank you for bringing me back.
No, it's all good. Like, it's crazy. It's like you're talking about that, and I can actually hear it spinning right now.
Right.
Like, so that sort of like grind that it had every time you would try and see what was on the rack. Yeah.
And I'm seeing that, and like you're looking for it. And they, again, at CVS, they're not putting them in any kind of
right
consistent order. You don't even know if this is the latest or whatever. They just there, right? And so I find it, and I'm like, oh, this is the one that Robert had. Mm-hmm. So I pull it out, and I think back then, what was it, 35 cents?
Yeah, 35
whatever, So I go to my mother, Mom, please, can I have G.I. Joe? And she was like, you want this? And please, I'll do anything, just give it to me. She said, all right, so we throw it on the counter, and she gets it for me. And now I get to pour into it. And I wasn't at that time really reading comics. I would just look at the pictures.
Right.
And so I'm looking at it. I'm more into the artwork, and I want to see what's going on. And I'm like, man, it was more about, I now have what my rival had, at that time. So I go back, I go into school, and now I've got G.I. Joe #6. Now, Omar, you got G.I. Yes. Give me what you were giving him now. And lo and behold, I look, and he's got #7. And now I'm upset because I've got the old issue.
Right.
And I go back, we go back to Heckinger's, and I go back to the Spinner, and G.I. Joe #7 isn't in this. So now this has failed, because I can't rely on CVS to be my supplier. So I go back to Rob, and mind you, this is my rival. And I'm like, bruh, how did you get that? Where did you go to get like that? Because, when I talk to the people at CVS, and I'm like, where's #7? They're like, oh, we don't know. They usually come in once a week or whatever. We'll get a delivery. We can't really tell you when it'll be here.
Right.
But it's coming. Well, man, I can't. I'm, 11 years old or whatever it is I am. I can't guarantee that I can make it back here. I'm here now.
Right.
I don't have a car. I don't, I can't control how I get places. I need something, reliable. So I go to him and I say, hey, man, where'd you go? And he goes, Jeppy's. And I say, what is that? And he's like, it's a store that sells comics. And to be honest with you, bro, I didn't believe him.
Right.
Because I thought I'm like, oh, you making that up. Ain't nothing called Jeppy's. I ain't never heard no Jeppy's.
Right.
To me, it felt like Jip, like Jippy. Is what I thought. So you trying to jip me on this? He was like, nah, man, it's legit. That's where I got it. And so back then, if you wanted to look up if a store was real, you had to go to the phone book. And so I'm like, well, how am I supposed to find this out? So we break out in the corner, there's the yellow pages, and I go to the G's, and lo and behold, well, actually, I started out going to the J's, thinking that it was spelled JEPP, Jep, and so I'm like, I look under the G, and lo and behold, there it is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, here's a crazy thing, bro. 8317 Fenton Street. And so it's like it's locked.
Oh, wow.
Right? Like, yeah,
right.
It is 40 plus years later, that's locked in my brain where it is.
Yeah,
or where it was.
It's still open to some.
Is Jeppy still there?
Yeah, I think it's still there. I don't think it's called Jeppy's anymore, but I think it's still there.
I know that here's what's wild about Jeppy's. So I begged my mother to take me, because now I gotta have G.I. Joe #7. Because Rob had it. And I'm like, can we go today? I'm calling her at work. It's at this place. It's in Silver Spring. They close at, I think they close at 7, if I'm not mistaken, back in the day. I'm like, they close at 7. And like, mom's is at work. She about to get off work. It's maybe 4:30. And I'm trying to get her home, get to Jeppy's before they close so that I can have G.I. Joe #7. And she's like, look, I'll take you Saturday. I can't wait till Saturday, Ma, because I won't be able to go into school and flex and say that I too have this. By Saturday, it's not, I get it Saturday, it's not going to matter.
Right. And when you're like 10 or 11 or whatever it was, Tuesday to Saturday may as well be like 2020 to like 2030. Exactly. It's just so far away.
So far away. Like, man, that's I think, and this might have been like a Tuesday. And she's like, can we just wait till Saturday? I'm a single mom with 2 jobs. Can you give me a break? No, I'd have to have it today. It has to be today. So
Right.
she takes me, I took the L. And shout out to my mom. She took me to Jeppy's so many times. Like would race home to get me there so that I could buy the next issue or whatever it was. But she ended up taking me that Saturday. I remember we got up early because I want to say they opened 10 or something like that or whatever. Right, yeah. And I'm like, so she's like, all right, let's get up. We get up and she's, again, there's no GPS or nothing back in these days. It was, all right, it's somewhere in Silver Spring. We'll drive around until we find it.
Right.
We find Fenn Street. We get to 8317. I see the sign. She, because at this point I'm, 10, 11, years old. Mom, I don't want you going in with me. I'll go in. You stay in the car. I'll go in. She's like, okay, I'll stay parked right here. So I get out. I got my little coins. I go in. And bro, this is my first time walking into a comic book store.
Okay.
So you open the door and you're met with that comic book smell.
Yes.
Of a store that sells comic books.
That paper smell.
Yeah.
And if it's a certain type of comic book smell, it might be some BO coming out of there too.
Yes, there was also, there's also that. Jeppy's though was very clean.
Right.
You didn't have
that.
Yeah, you didn't have a lot of, this was before. Well, maybe they had it. I don't remember a ton of it, but you didn't have a whole lot of dudes hanging out talking comics at that time. Dudes were in there kind of just going through looking for comics, but and you had the same guys that, I went there so much that you get to know the guys that are working there. And I remember the big thing I remember about Jeppy's was that I fell in love with their voice, their voicemail machine or whatever. Their when you would call up and you couldn't reach anybody, they would record these elaborate voicemail messages for the answer machine that would tell you about all of the titles that just.
Oh my God, I remember that.
You remember those, man? Like they like it was a production that Jeppy's would do to the point where, bro, I fell in love with one particular one so much that I called them and I set up a tape recorder so I could record and save the message. And I remember it because Long Shot #1 had just come out. And that was one of the ones. In fact, the quote was, Long Shot #1, a very good looking book, was what the dude. What was wild was I think they were doing, it was an aquatic theme that they did because they were making all of these aquatic ocean type noises, and probably because Aquaman was doing something or whatever, but they would theme the answering machine message around whatever the drop was. And this particular week, there was a book that came out called Werewolf and Long Shot #1. So whatever week Long Shot #1 debuted, that was the one that they did that I absolutely fell in love with, to the point where I kept calling back after hours so I could hear it, and then just recorded it so I wouldn't have to call them to death. But yeah, I go in, you're met with that smell. I go up to the dude at the counter, and I'm, again, man, wide-eyed, just first time, not even knowing what, I'm experiencing. I can't even, I'm just, and the dude's like, hey, man, welcome. How can I help you? And I'm like, G.I. Joe? And he's like, okay, man, it's right down here. And he pointed it out where they had it. And I walked down, man, and it's so different than the spinner rack at CVS because clean, like nobody's touched them. They're undefiled. They're new. They're pristine. And there's several of them. Like you got like 5, 6 copies. You're not scrambling for the one. Right. Like I can, wait, and they got other issues behind it that came out already.
Back issues.
Your back's like, wait a minute, what is this? That's like I don't have to dig. Like they're right here. I can just get them. Mind you, I couldn't because I broke. And I'm walking in with maybe $1, to get this one issue.
It feels so crazy to me that you could walk into a comic shop with $1 and conceivably walk out with 2 comics.
Yeah, you could
and
actually,
change.
and change 2 comics and change. You had enough to get 2 books, and that actually eventually became what would happen for me because once and after that, GI Joe wasn't enough, man. The next one I would get would be X-Men was
Oh
the
yeah,
next one, and it was like I think I've
absolutely.
told you this before. 172, 173, the Wolverine Rogue issue with Silver Samurai that they based the Wolverine on.
Yep.
Those were my first issues of X-Men that introduced me to Wolverine, which is why I get so bitter about how he was handled in the Wolverine movie, fighting robot Silver Samurai, because it messes with my experience falling in love with that title. But yeah, man, once I had GI Joe #7 and they were fighting, I believe the Russians, the October Guard,
The
were who they
October
were
Guard. Yep.
battling. Yeah,
Mhm.
the all of a sudden now I'm into it because I've got 2 issues. I got 6 and I got 7, and I got 7 and it's new. And now I got to ask questions. I'm like, well, when is the next one coming out? And they're like, oh man, they come out once a month. Oh, okay. So I'm in the car and I'm like, we have to come back next month,
In 1 month.
and a month we have to come back here. And I remember coming home, having it, and sitting in class like the next day, not paying attention. And I remember taking a piece of notebook paper and saying, I wonder if I can draw that.
Mm.
And trying to not so much, initially you think, let me trace it, and I tried that. But then I was like, well, let me not trace. Let me see if I can actually just look at what this is and if I can copy it. And that gave way to, once I realized I could make something that looked like, at least to me, what was on the comic book page, it made me say, well, I wonder if I can make my own of
Right.
this. But it was GI Joe that led to me wanting to create my own comics and stories. Was that moment sitting in elementary school. It's GI Joe #6.
No, I absolutely feel that. I think the two comics that you cited, G.I. Joe and X-Men, I
Mm.
think for a lot of like 80s babies, those were the gateway comics for a lot of us. It was X-Men and it was G.I. Joe. I think that most of us found G.I. Joe first because G.I. Joe also had the cartoon,
Right.
and they actually used uh, a cartoon to let you know that G.I. Joe was a cartoon commercial to let you know
Yeah.
that G.I. Joe was coming to comic book shops. So,
Right.
yeah, remember that? Like, it was like
Yes.
before there was even a G.I. Joe cartoon, there was a commercial that let you know that there were G.I. Joe comic books in
I
comic book
remember
shops,
that.
which was
Yes.
crazy. So I remember we didn't have a comic book shop close to us because, I grew up in Northwest BC.
Right.
Um, but
Well, shoot,
I was
Jeppy's would have been
fortunate.
the closest one to you. I'm thinking,
It would
right?
have been the closest one, but it's
Yeah.
like we didn't have the
Yeah. You down to
subway
Adams
like that,
Morgan
and
area.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
We didn't have. I could have taken the bus, but that would have meant that I would have had to walk about a mile to get to the bus that would have taken me to Jappy's.
Plus,
But
you now got to save for bus fare, and that's money that
exactly,
you would have spent on comics. So yeah, you got the
exactly.
double L. Yeah.
Welcome to being a broke kid in Washington D.C.
Right.
But I was so fortunate. Like, and you know what? Shout out to all the parents, the mothers, the fathers who just wanted their kids to read, man.
Yes.
Um, because like as hard as things were for us, and because my mother, she was a teacher's assistant, so she
Mm.
didn't make a lot of money. But she would always throw me $1 here or there, hit me up with $5, which was a lot of money to me back then.
Yeah.
And I was so fortunate that she would do that and just didn't care what I was doing with it. So there was a drugstore within walking distance, and they had a comics rack there. And I just fell in love with that comics rack because, you look at it and there's all these like bright, shiny pieces of paper on there. There's things that you recognize like G.I. Joe, there's Spider-Man, there's Star Wars, but then you start seeing other little weird things. It's like,
Mm.
wait, who is Omega the Unknown?
Mm.
Um, who is Blue Beetle? Um, and so I remember kind of going, all right, I don't understand what any of this is all about, but I want to understand what it's all about. So I didn't know that comics were like a monthly thing. So I would just grab stuff that looked interesting to me. Um,
Mm.
so it was like, okay, I know Spider Man, I'll get Spider Man. Um, so I would get myself an issue of Spider Man, and then I would get like, just other things. Like I said, it would be an issue of Blue Beetle. It would be an issue of Moon Knight or an issue of Who's Who in the DC universe or the official handbook of the Marvel universe. It would always just be something.
Mm.
Um, and I was super fortunate that there was a guy there, and his name was Ernest. Ernest was a really cool dude. Ernest kind of let me know that here's what comics do. They publish once a month. You can come pick up this comic because it usually comes out around this time of the month. So come pick this up, blah blah blah. And so I started getting the concept of like, oh, these comics are stories. It's just not you just pick up one random issue and that's it. It's one and done. It's like, no, they're interconnected. There's a whole universe. Spider-Man can actually meet up with Thor
Right.
because they share the same universe. But wait a minute, G.I. Joe has a Marvel thing on it, but it's not in the Marvel universe. I don't care. I don't care how this isn't working. But
Right.
I started figuring out that I actually liked Marvel comics better than I did DC comics at that
Now
time.
that surprises me because
Right.
you are like, I felt like, man, if you ever became a multi-billionaire, like the first thing you'd buy is DC Comics. You would just buy it.
You know what? I'm going to tell you something that's probably going to shock you. I
Mm.
don't think I became a DC fan until I was maybe in my mid 20s. Like,
That stuns me.
yeah, like, believe it or not, I did not collect Batman on a regular basis until maybe I was like in my late teens. And it was
I
something that I stuck with, but
huh.
I wasn't in love with it the way that I was in love with the X-Men. No.
Okay, that makes sense though, because as you said, if your gateway was GI Joe and X Men,
Hmm.
then you're naturally going to be in that. I think all of us were in that make mine Marvel
Oh,
camp.
absolutely.
We were all in that. Marvel could do no wrong. At that time, and with DC, uh, it's funny, man. I loved the characters but did not associate them, and this is going to sound ridiculous,
Hmm.
with comic books. I
Yeah.
associated DC with cartoons and movies.
Yes, exactly. Because, let's be honest about it. DC Comics was kind of corny.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
it was the Super Friends. It was Batman 66.
Yep.
It was Wonder Woman 77.
Yep.
So it was all these things that, even though they weren't that long ago, they felt like nostalgia, you
Yes.
know? Whereas Spider Man was still doing things. You had
Yeah.
Spider Man and his amazing friends. Um, we were not that far removed from the Nicholas Hammond Spider Man TV series.
Yes.
There was always a Spider Man in some form or another. You could turn on the TV, Spider Man was still in the electric company.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. He
you know?
sure was. Right.
So they were always doing something, whereas DC Comics, they didn't feel like they moved as fast as Marvel on stuff.
Right.
You know, even though you knew Conan wasn't a Marvel property, you know,
Right.
you could look at Arnold Schwarzenegger and go, "That's our guy."
Yep.
You know. So in that, oh yeah, and going back to GI Joe, there was a G.I. Joe cartoon on that was done by Marvel Productions. So it was like, yo, make mine Marvel. They're
Right.
killing it, you know? Whereas you looked at DC and it was like, yeah, we got Super Friends.
Right.
Occasionally you would hear rumblings about something Batman related happening, but you also got to remember outside of like Superman, Christopher Reeve,
Yeah.
there really wasn't anything going on at DC Comics.
That's a fair point. Like, there's so much inundation with superhero movies today that we forget that it was a big deal to have Superman fly on screen in 1979.
Exactly. It was a very big deal because there had pretty much been a drought for comic book anything for almost a decade because the assumption was that comics were for kids.
Right.
So there wasn't a lot of stuff for us, like the actual fans who knew that there was something called continuity and that Spider-Man and Superman had lives and we wanted to access that stuff. Nobody knew about that except us comic fans because they would just give us like these like sort of like to this day it still kind of ticks me off that we would have. Oh, and that's another thing. Forget about the Incredible Hulk. That was a thing too.
Oh man, that the Bill Bixby show with Ferrigno. Yeah.
But it ticked me off that we had all these shows, but we could have the heroes, but they wouldn't give us the villains.
Huh.
I mean, outside of Batman 66.
Yeah.
That was the only show where you actually could look and go, oh, well, yeah, he's fighting his villain.
Yeah.
Like the Spider-Man 70s TV show live action, no villain.
He was fighting random dudes.
Yeah,
with a garage door opener on his wrist that fired ropes.
Exactly. So Hulk was fighting drug dealers, child abusers,
yes,
and bears.
Yo, I'm not gonna lie. Him throwing a bear is still the greatest thing.
I know.
Bro, I'm gonna tell you, there's moments in the Incredible Hulk show. Not to derail, I'll get off of this in a sec. But when that dude threw a bear and that courtroom scene, the courtroom scene there's a dude. I know it's not Kelsey Grammer, but he looks a lot like Kelsey Grammer. The dude playing the attorney. When the Hulk grabs that dude and he makes his eyes bug out. It is the funniest thing in the world to me, which is why I will never disrespect the Hulk TV show. It is so that courtroom when they brought back and tried to bring Thor in and whatever, it was so horrible. It's great. And I'll get off of that. But that when you put that image in my mind of him throwing the bear, I'm like, yes, yes. But go ahead, man. You were saying,
yeah, but so in that regard, Marvel moved a lot faster than DC, so I just tended to gravitate towards it because it was something that I could access pretty easily on TV, in comics, whatever. And DC just felt kind of old to me. Don't get me wrong, I loved me some DC, man. Like I would literally spend hours reading who's who in the DC universe. Like that was basically their encyclopedia of all things DC Comics. I read John Byrne's Superman, but until John Byrne, who I knew from Fantastic Four at Marvel, came over to DC to do that, it was like, oh, now I guess I can read Superman now. The only thing I can kind of compare it to is when you're a kid, you don't know how anything works. You just think everything's one big universe.
Right.
So I would go to North Carolina to spend summers, and I would see Ric Flair. And I would go.
You saw Ric Flair live in his prime?
Not live, but he would pop up on TV.
Oh, okay.
On the local North Carolina TV show, wrestling show.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my God, this dude. Oh my God, he talks and he does all these other things. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would come back to DC, turn on the WWF show, Superstars, I think it was, and go, why isn't Ric Flair on here? Oh
Mm.
God, why isn't Ric Flair on here? And so I just thought everything was one big universe. And so until I actually learned that about comics, like, there is a Marvel, there is a DC universe. Here's what Marvel does. Here's what DC does. Marvel moved fast as lightning. DC tended to kind of stay where it was like, okay, Superman's going to do this, and he's going to do it again next month. Whereas it was like with the X-Men, it was like, we're going to fight the Brood this month.
Right.
But then there's going to be an epic saga where we're going to be fighting the Shi'ar Empire.
Yep.
And it was like, okay, I like this. This makes me want to come back from month to month.
Yeah.
So that's when I exactly fell in love with Marvel, right about
that's 80s, man.
Yeah, about 85, 86.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, I would say that's the it's still Claremont, but the Byrne run ended, I want to say, probably just prior to that.
Yeah, like, it's funny. Yeah. It's like the Byrne Claremont era ended exactly at the end of the 1980, I believe.
Yeah.
Because the final John Byrne, Chris Claremont X-Men issue is actually a Christmas issue.
Yeah, you know what? I always here's what's wild, and it's I don't have these physical. I have them digital through Comixology, but I was under the impression for the longest time that it was Days of Future Past, that was Byrne, but it's actually one that I believe has the Wendigo in it. And because Wolverine's in Canada, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I know which one you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah.
Are you talking about as the final issue, or as
Byrne's final issue? Because
no, John Byrne's final issue was that Kitty Pryde issue where she fights.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And
that was the last one.
That's like 141, 42?
Somewhere about there.
Somewhere about there, yeah.
Yeah, and then I believe Cockrum even comes back for a little bit. And then after that, that's when Paul Smith comes in and takes over the book.
Quiet as kept, man. Paul Smith.
That man is so good.
Beast. And it is he falls into the category of artists that I didn't know what I had because I was a John Byrne stan.
Right.
So hard that if you did not draw like John Byrne, I didn't want to mess with you. Like, nah, you're not Byrne.
Right.
But Paul Smith is that dude, man. That dude.
Yeah. Paul Smith is incredible. And I follow him on Twitter and he's still cranking out some beautiful work. I don't know why he isn't doing more comics. Maybe he just doesn't want to. Maybe he can't. I don't know. But his artwork is, I think, even more beautiful now than it ever was. I know that he was never in love with the monthly grind. I know that. But that's another guy I wouldn't mind seeing on a comic page.
How long did his run last? Because he came in right after, like you said, Cochran was back for a hot second. And then he came in because I want to say he was the artist when I got introduced to it.
I think that his run, and I know people will correct me, but I think that I don't think he was even there 3 years, man. I think he might have been there a little over 2 years, but there was a gap between. So he was the bridge from. No, Cochran was the bridge from Byrne to Smith.
Yeah.
Smith was there for a little bit, but then John Romita came in. John Romita Jr. came in.
Right.
And had I think it was close to a 5, 6, 7 year run on that.
That's probably who was writing, or should I say, he was probably my X-Men intro artist.
Yeah.
If he was on in the 170s, which I think he was, now that I think about it, because I'm just thinking stylistically. I believe it was him. And
Yeah,
again, that's not like that was, a drop off. He's that dude also.
yeah, he's another one
Yeah.
who's that dude. Because I believe he was brought in to be a fill-in artist for Paul Smith, and uh, what Marvel didn't know was that he could actually do 2 books a month with no problem.
Mm.
So they were actually getting ahead on deadlines, and John Byrne and Romita wanted to be there, so he wound up there on X-Men for a good long while. Meanwhile, Paul Smith moved over to Doctor Strange, which I believe at that time was bi-monthly, so it fit
Ah,
with what he could actually do on a regular basis.
got you.
Yeah,
Okay, that makes sense.
yeah.
Um, hey, speaking of which, man, I'm curious to know, like, what was your pull list?
Oh, pull list.
Yeah, man. Like,
Uh,
what like, and I'm guessing just based on what you said earlier, you just
mhm,
grabbed what was interesting, but
right.
you worked and ran comic shops for what, man, like a decade,
Uh,
if I'm not mistaken,
no,
probably
more
longer
than
than
that.
that.
16 years.
Yeah.
Uh,
So for
yeah.
you, pull this. You might be the wrong dude to ask because you could literally pull the store. But there had to be books that you would like when you were going restocking that you were like, I'm gonna set these aside. These are gonna be the ones I read and then stock.
Okay.
Like, what would be over that damn near 2 decade period? Would you say you were pulling most often?
Okay, I got an answer for that. So I started working in at another universe uh back in '96.
I remember
And
that.
yeah, this was post comic book bust. This is after um everybody came in and they were buying comics literally in the millions. When a Spider-Man #1 would sell like 8 million copies. Oh, excuse me, X-Men
X
#1
Men #1. Okay, yeah,
sold
that was
8
that era.
million copies.
Yeah.
When Image Comics, like an Image comic could basically start at 1 million copies printed, 100 million copies sold to comic shops. But also, what a lot of people didn't realize was that if a million comics were sold, those comics were probably bought by maybe 150,000 people. So that
What?
meant that
People buying
people had
multiple.
multiple copies.
Wow.
And so they would suddenly go, all right, now it's time to flip them. To who?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Um, because you've got 8 copies of the same thing. Guess what? The other person who came in,
Right.
they bought 12 copies of it. So who are you going to sell those 8 or 12 to now? Because
Right.
everybody who wants one can get 8 copies of this damn book. And people
Right.
didn't realize that back then. So I came in after all that went away.
Mm.
And the numbers are were still good. Like today's comic shops would kill to have numbers like what were going on in like maybe like '96 or some such. I don't have exact numbers, but I remember it was not a weird thing to sell 100 copies of Spawn in 1997.
Mm.
Um, that was just what was going on back then. Um, so to answer your question,
Yeah.
uh, back then I was an X-Men person. Like I would get depressed if there wasn't a good X-Men book on the shelf that week. Um, so I would get every X-Men comic back then. Didn't matter what it was. It could be Starjammers. It could
Mm.
be the actual X-Men comic because I still hadn't quite broken out to find out what I liked. And that's kind of going back to what we were talking about before when I told you that I didn't become a DC Comics fan until maybe I was in my mid 20s.
Right.
Um, because I just didn't know any better. Um, I was still reading a lot of stuff But the thing that okay, just to go back to the original question. So yeah, I was reading a lot of X-Men. I was still reading Spider-Man, but back then a lot of things were just kind of looping on top of themselves, if that makes any sense. So,
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so now if you're talking '90s Spider-Man,
hmm
now at this
we're
point, he's got what?
we're doing the Clone Saga at this point.
Clone Saga. Right, right,
Right.
right, right.
We're doing
Which
the
I got to be
Clone
honest.
Saga. We're doing things like Age of Apocalypse.
Yeah,
Um, they're trying to figure out how to keep people still buying these damn comics.
right,
Um, so they're basically just printing up a lot of stuff that makes you have to buy 30. You may not be buying 30 copies of the same thing, but you have to buy 30 copies of comics in order to get the full story.
yes,
So I'm still buying that stuff, but I'm not enjoying it.
right.
Um, so to answer your question again, I'm reading a lot of X-Men, I'm reading a lot of Spider-Man, I'm not enjoying it like I used to. So I kind of go back and I'm like, well, I used to like DC Comics. And suddenly I'm reading Batman again. I'm reading Superman again because they're weekly comics, but they're actually done a little bit better than Marvel comics.
Right.
And the comic that actually made me a massive DC Comics fan was Starman. I don't know if you know anything about this book.
I have heard of Starman. I admittedly don't know a ton. What can you what can you tell me about
Okay,
Starman? Yeah.
Starman was this comic that came out of the events of Zero Hour, where basically DC kind of had to reset their continuity
For the
for,
100th time or
well,
whatever.
yeah, because after, some things were still broken,
Okay.
basically with continuity. Um, so Starman was this comic where basically it was the slacker, and that's a very '90s term,
Right.
named Jack Knight, um, had to become the new Starman. This was a guy, he was not in the best shape. He was not meant to be the superhero.
Interesting.
His father was the Golden Age Starman. Um, and he had two sons, Jack, and I can't remember who the other one. I think it was David. Um, David was the one who was like, I am going to be Starman. I'm going to take over the mantle of Starman. And on the first night that he dons the costume, he's standing on the rooftop and he's like, okay, this is my first step. Um, let me make my father proud. And suddenly, uh, I believe it was a bullet just goes right through his chest and he drops.
Oh
And I remember just kind of going, well, fuck, what?
man. Right.
Excuse my language. If you gotta beep that out, beep it out.
Shoot, man.
But
You again thinking about between me, you, and Chris on the other
right.
episodes, I ain't beeped out nothing, so we good.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, that's right. We filthy. Um, so I'm reading this comic and I'm like, wait, you just killed the hero. What? And so
Wow.
Jack, because they're trying to kill the whole family, he gets the Starman rod, the thing that, his father carried, his brother was going to carry, and realizes there needs to be a Starman, and decides, okay, I'm it, and becomes Starman. And this was the thing that I did not realize. Legacy. Legacy. I didn't know anything about Legacy. I was just like, you just become a superhero, right? Um,
Mm.
I didn't realize that there were through lines to things. Um, like I knew about the Golden Age Starman. I knew that there was even a Starman in the '70s that I would occasionally pick up in Adventure Comics. I knew that, and that was drawn by Steve Ditko. Um, and
He worked for DC? I did
yeah,
not know that.
he,
Okay.
dude, he created the Creeper. He created Hawk and Dove. He was
What?
he wasn't at DC for a long time, but while he was there, he left a footprint.
Huh.
So yeah, he did some stuff. Um, and so kind of, I remember reading the Starman, and suddenly I realized that there were legacy characters where it was like someone could literally hand you the identity and say, "Go do me proud." And also, remember there was another Starman. There was the Will Payton Starman that was done
Th-
by Roger Stern and Tom Lyle. Um,
huh.
so this book, Starman, that came out in the '90s, said, "All right, we're going to take all these starmen that had nothing to do with each other, and we're going to try and figure out how it all becomes one big thing." And to me, that was like one of the most beautiful comics I had ever read, because it was this acknowledgement that all the things that came before were just as valid as anything that was going on today. So
Mm.
it was just, Jack Knight was like, I'm not just going to, carry this legacy on for my father, but I'm going to carry it on for all the ever fallen starmen. And that to me was like a big deal. So suddenly, legacy became a big thing in DC Comics. It was like you would kind of look at Nightwing, Dick Grayson, and go, "Oh, are you going to be the next Batman? Is Tim Drake going to be the next Batman?" Um,
Huh.
right.
Yeah.
Suddenly, you started seeing the Green Lantern Corps go, "Look, Alan Scott, the Golden Age Green Lantern, was never an actual Green Lantern, but we took our our cues from this man." And then also in the Flash, you started seeing this thing called the Speed Force, where it
Right.
was basically like the Jedi version of Speed, and you're finding out all these other things where it's like Jay Garrick, the original Golden Age Flash,
Right.
was the first person who ever that we're aware of touched the Speed Force. Um, and you find out that Barry Allen was inspired by the Golden Age Flash to become a Flash. Um, and then Wally West has to pick up the mantle from Barry Allen after he dies. And Wally West was the original Kid Flash. And suddenly he's thrust into like this role of being the guy, and he has to reach out to the Golden Age Flash and kind of go, "Well, what do I do? How do I become better?" And it's like, "We got you, kid." And I suddenly started falling in love with DC Comics just for those reasons. Um, and another thing that I loved was John Byrne. His writing in the '90s was kind of hit or miss, but he did this
Right.
great story where, for the longest time, because of the events of the Crisis on Infinite Earths, we find out that Wonder Woman was just Wonder Woman. Princess Diana was Wonder Woman, didn't step foot into man's world until the '80s. There was no Golden Age version of Wonder Woman. But
Huh.
John Byrne did this brilliant thing where Hippolyta had to go back in time, um, and essentially, while she was stuck in time, there's no Wonder Woman at that point. Um, and she goes, "This world needs a Wonder Woman," and Hippolyta becomes Wonder Woman through World War II. So she fills that
Huh.
gap, you know. And I remember kind of going, "Oh my God, I love DC Universe." Meanwhile, the X-Men are just slapping X onto everything,
Right.
trying to figure it out later. Um, but DC seemed to have a direction, so I just fell in love with it.
You know what's real interesting about the juxtaposition about the arc that you described in terms of what got you into it versus the evolution of your love of comics is the very thing that made you love Marvel, made you fall out of love with
Mm,
Marvel
yeah.
later on. They were moving too fast.
Yeah.
And I think to some degree, their mobility early on was contained to a handful of books. Spider-Man is that dude. They're like, okay, this Spider-Man's our cash cow. This
Right.
is, and I mean, and to this day, uh, that remains true. Um, hence what he's worth alone to Sony to be able to produce video games, and to the point now where what's real interesting, man, is how you mentioned the legacy, and I'm realizing now why Starman is familiar to me. I'd never heard or read the book, and I'm like, why do I know what that is? Because on HBO Max, they have all the DC, live action stuff. There's a show called Stargirl, which is
Yeah.
basically the
Hmm.
same. When
There
you
you
mention the
go.
rod, I go, oh, wait a minute. I know what that is.
Hmm.
But I know it from that TV show, Stargirl, where
Right.
she inherits the legacy of her father, who
Right.
was murdered, and the staff or the rod speaks to her, and
Right.
she can make it come to life and do her thing.
Hmm.
Um, so it's what's interesting is that the one area where I think that Marvel sort of manufactured that same feeling is, or you said this to me, and I'm gonna borrow it because I love how you put it. They Marvel takes all of those when the way I found, and you correct me if I'm off. You're more of a SME on this than me, but the way I look at it is they don't have the same legacy in terms of multiple dudes wearing the mantle of a particular thing, with the one exception being Spider-Man.
Right.
Because they look at, you say, okay, Peter Parker's Spider-Man, but so is Miles Morales, so is Gwen Stacy, so is I forget the name of the clone dude, but he was the clone.
Ben Riley.
Ben Riley, and then I think there was the Scarlet Spider as well, unless that's the same dude.
Yeah, that is the same dude.
Same dude.
Yeah, he
Okay.
was on Scarlet Spider.
Scarlet Spider. Okay. The at that time, Peter, if I'm remembering correctly, he was like, I got kids. I can't be doing this.
Right.
And gave it up. And so clone dude is like, all right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do my thing. And so they gave like a different sort of flow. But what you're starting to see cinematically is the same concept of, okay, Spider-Man 3, we're going to bring back Tobey Maguire, we're going to bring back Andrew, what's his
Right.
face, and we're going to have Tom Holland, Garfield.
Yeah.
Yeah. You look at the Spider-Verse, they distill Spider-Man down into his best parts.
Right.
Because there aren't a bunch of, well, I can't say this anymore, but there weren't a bunch of Spider-Men.
Mm.
But now you could make an argument through, I think Marvel's trick way of doing it is the multiverse of, we don't have the legacy within the same universe, but we're going to just say,
right.
We're going to do it this way. And I'll be honest, I have become a fan of the way that the multiverse is handled because the stories are so good. You look at the handling, frankly, of Miles Morales gives me hope in terms of the multiverse. Because to be honest with you, I look at it and I go, that's a lazy way to add diversity to a well-known title. But they did it so well that I'm like, I got to mess with it.
Right.
Got to.
No,
they did so good. But does that make sense?
No, I know what you mean. It's for the longest time, I feel like Marvel was almost not cognizant that it had legacy. Because a lot of people don't know this. Steve Rogers has not always been the Captain America.
Wait, even from like the beginning?
Right. Well, no, he was the original Captain.
Okay.
But in order to kind of explain how Captain America could actually be around during like the 1950s, because they were still running Captain America comics back then, Marvel said, okay, there were two other people who were acting as Captain America at the time, in order to fill in because the U.S. government was like, well, I guess we still need to have a Captain America. Um, so instead of touting the fact that Captain America could have been a legacy character, they kind of just are like, no, we're a little bit embarrassed that we did that. um, and it wasn't until, to be honest, until very recently, maybe within the past maybe 7 to 8 years, that Marvel has said, no, let's go in on legacy.
Mm.
And that's why I think people were responding to their comics the way that they are. Because you also got to keep in mind, legacy was very much a copyright thing for Marvel. It wasn't anything that they did because they went, oh, well, let's create something that will be good. And yeah, that it will be good and that people will love it. No. Like, let's take She-Hulk, for instance.
Right.
She-Hulk, legacy character. But the
Yeah.
thing of it is, you don't see her that way because, let's be honest, she was created because they were like, well, we don't want anybody creating a character who is basically a female version of Hulk. So we have to have a She-Hulk. Same thing with Spider-Woman. Oh, we don't want anyone to do a female version of Spider-Man, so we're going to create a Spider-Woman. Same thing with Miss Marvel. Like, we don't want anybody putting a female. We don't want anyone being able to put Marvel behind their name, so we're going to go ahead and create a female version of Captain Marvel.
Right.
These were copyright concerns. They weren't worried about making them good. And it wasn't until maybe about 7 or 8 years ago, I can't remember exactly when it was done, when someone actually went, why can't Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers, why can't she just be Captain Marvel? Why can't that just happen? And somebody did it. Well, we still got a Miss Marvel out there. No, we don't have a Miss Marvel, but why does the next Miss Marvel, why does she have to be a young white girl?
Right.
Maybe she could be a young woman, Arab American woman,
Yeah.
Okay, Thor's effing up again. He's not worthy. Why do we have to make the next Thor a horse human? Like Beta Ray Bill. Why can't it just be a woman?
Yeah.
And have her, like, Thor can be a mantle. It doesn't have to be like a tall, blonde, white guy. It can be a mantle. It can be passed on to somebody else. And that's a very recent thing in Marvel where, and here's the other thing, let's go back to Spider-Woman. They didn't start incorporating Spider-Woman into Spider-Man's family until maybe about 5 years ago.
So really with the introduction of the Spider-Verse is when they started saying, okay, well, yeah, now we're going to do, well, let me ask you this. Was that Marvel or was that really more Sony?
I think it was more creators, to be honest.
Okay.
It's kind of going, why are we doing this? Why are we creating multiple Spider-Women when everybody knows Spider-Woman is Jessica Drew? Like, why are you trying to shave down all these like square pegs to make them fit into round holes? Why not just bring in Jessica and just say she is Spider-Woman? Look, we know that her origin doesn't necessarily link into Spider-Man's the way that maybe a She-Hulk does with the Hulks. But damn it, like, she is a spider person. Put her next to Spider-Man and people will get it,
Yep.
So I think that it was finally like we were the first generation of comic book fans who could look at something like that. Well, maybe not the first, but we could look at somebody like a Jessica Drew and go, well, make it a family, you know?
Mm.
Now, there's something I love is like when you see like the family shots, when you see Batman, Nightwing, Robin,
Yeah.
Batgirl, Huntress, when you see them all together, it's just like, yes, more of that.
Yeah.
I like the fact that they're doing that um, with different characters. Like Iron Man even has a family. Like Rescue
Yeah.
is within the Marvel universe. You have Ironheart, Riri Williams. You have a War Machine,
Yeah.
Rhodey, and it's just like, yeah, if the S hits the fan, you know, they should all be standing together, ready to take down whatever. And I'm here for it, man. So yeah, so I love the fact that like we're acknowledging that you know these mantles exist and can be passed down. Like I don't know where they're going to go with it, but I'm looking forward to Falcon, Captain America, Falcon, Winter
Yes.
Soldier, because we don't know if Falcon says, "Yeah, I'm not just going to carry the shield. Maybe I will be Captain America." Um, I mean, I'm excited for it, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm there with you on that. Speaking of Falcon and Winter Soldier, and the fact that we're getting U.S. Agent, in that, and just that whole. I need to go and deep dive into. Like, I'm in a bunch of Facebook groups
Hmm.
that deal with Marvel comics, particularly, and there's one in particular that I love that's like from 60 to like 86. Like
Yeah.
they do about that like about a 20-year span that they cover. And I saw a post recently that somebody put up about where Cap is the captain, at this point. So he's got the black
Oh yeah.
suit,
Hmm.
with the little star up in the corner. And there's another dude who's Captain America
Yeah.
at that time. And Red Skull is there,
Mm. You're
but he
talking John Walker, who eventually becomes U.S. agent.
okay. So the scene, and this was fascinating to me, man, because I'd never, again, I didn't really get into Cap hard until the Ultimates.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Ultimates made me a fan of Avengers in a way that I didn't know the Avengers could be like that.
Right.
And so those two trades, I remember I was working at I want to say I was working at Barnes and Noble at the time. So this would have been, I want to say 2003.
Yeah,
If I'm not mistaken, right. When those dropped. Yeah. So they were trades at that point. At least the first one was, because I found it in the bookstore, and I was like, I'm just stocking shelves, and I see it, and I flip through it, and I was like, man, that dude looked like Sam Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And realizing that, oh, that's Nick Fury. Okay,
right.
That's interesting. I wonder if they did that on purpose. Right? And of course, we all know where that that led. And I believe without the Ultimates, you don't have the version of the Avengers that we've come to know about.
You absolutely don't.
Yeah,
you absolutely don't, because the Ultimates were the thing that made people go, "Well, Hulk should be an Avenger," because for the longest time, Hulk was Hulk, and maybe he was a defender.
Yes,
but I would say the majority of people didn't realize that Hulk was a founding member of the Avengers.
I didn't know.
Yeah, most people didn't know, because he was only there for like maybe 2 issues.
Oh, I know, it was that quick.
Yeah, like he wasn't there for long. But yeah, that's. I mean, there's just so much to love about comics, man.
Yeah, I did not know that. I mean, what's in my brain right now, in my mind's eye, is the cover of Avengers #1, and of course, they're all the primary, Avengers are there.
Mm-hmm.
What's wild, man, is like you said, the Ultimates. What's real interesting to me is how you didn't really have. You go back and you read the Ultimates trade, and Tony Stark. I guarantee you, man, they're not writing him like they wrote him for that book if they put that out today, because Downey has so changed the personality. He gave Tony Stark a personality.
Oh yeah.
And it's you can't write that character now and not pull from the inspiration that is Robert Downey Jr.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know? Yeah.
Absolutely. Like Ultimates, I would say pretty much saved the Avengers.
Yes.
Because you remember just as well as I do that Marvel didn't seem to understand that there was anything beyond the X-Men for the longest time.
For about 15 years.
For about 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Avengers were there have been times when I heard that maybe they were even going to cancel the book.
Wow.
Because they just didn't know what to do with it. So Ultimates comes around, and this is, we're all post Grim and Gritty, post Dark Knight Returns.
Yep.
So everybody's wanting realism. And I think that Ultimates was like the kind of perfect book for the Avengers. Like, why would these people be together now? And it became very much like the default Avengers book for the longest time, because the actual Avengers book was doing okay, but it didn't sell as well as the Ultimates did. The Ultimates are essentially, like you said, the Avengers on screen.
Yeah.
They were the prototype for that. Because you could see those characters where they're at right now, where they should be right now. So it's like, why would Tony Stark, why would a billionaire wrap himself inside of like basically $1 billion rocket and fight crime?
Right.
Like questions like that were being asked. Why, like there's a great line in Ultimates. Well, I think someone asked Tony why he drank, and the answer was, because I have to strap myself into $1 billion rocket to sometimes fight the Hulk. And that made sense to me.
Yeah.
The idea of superhero comics as I get a little bit older, I kind of have to wink, wink, nudge myself sometimes. Like, let's be honest about it. We know traffic. The idea of a Batmobile is dumb.
Yes.
It's dumb. The idea that you have to put a costume on whenever some trouble breaks out is dumb.
Yeah.
Us living in the surveillance state that we're in, the idea of a secret identity is kind of dumb now.
Wow.
So I actually don't mind sort of the way that we're moving, where everybody knows that Clint Barton is Hawkeye. Everybody knows that Captain America is Steve Rogers, because it's like, why do they need secret identities? Spider-Man, I get it. Batman, I get it. But, the default millionaire playboy, secret identity, it's not really a thing that works anymore.
Well, it's funny. They even pivoted from that with Spider-Man. I'll be curious to see how they do that in Spider-Man 3. The rumor mill is that Daredevil or She-Hulk will show up and be his attorney or something like that. It's a way to kind of tie into some things that are coming.
Yeah, I've heard Daredevil, because apparently Charlie Cox from the Daredevil TV series has been on that.
Oh, they're actually gonna. I'm so glad they're doing that, man. Yeah. Because that Daredevil's so good. To me, it's so like, good. Why would you not keep, like, you couldn't get that right in the movies. You get it right in the Netflix special.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you not bring that dude in?
So
that's what
politics. Politics. I heard the guy who was in charge of Marvel's TV division
Yeah.
was basically not lining things up with the cinematic universe.
Oh, just to piss everybody off?
I don't know about that, but Kevin Feige, he's the man.
Yeah, you can't.
You can't work around him.
No.
So I think that there was a conflict, and I don't know. Rumor has it that maybe what's going on with Spider-Man 3 is that the multiverse is broken within the MCU. So that's why suddenly you're having the Netflix universe in the same universe as the Spider-Man Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't know. We'll see. But also, that's another thing that I kind of want for myself. I want to be surprised again.
I don't know that you'll have that. I'll put it this way. The last time I was pleasantly surprised, and it was recent, was the finale of Mandalorian. That was a lot, and I can't think of that.
Season or
second season Mandalorian finale. I think enough time has passed now for me to be able to say it. With Luke showing up. That I didn't know. Now here's what's hilarious is that Mark Hamill tweets out, "Hey, has anybody seen anything good on TV lately?" The day that it dropped, and I'm like, well, if you follow him, and you happen to read that, it's not a spoiler, but it's a spoiler, right? Like, I want to, so anybody that's hardcore Star Wars fan sees a lone X-wing show up in Luke's, Return of the Jedi continuity and timeline. You knew, and it delivered so well that you were like, you lose your mind. That was the pleasant surprise. That I've had in terms of in this day and age, and even Hamill went as far as to say the fact that they were able to keep his involvement under wraps for like a year.
Yeah,
insane. He's like, how in the world this didn't leak is a mystery to me. I don't know, man. Apart from you, I remember you telling me about your boy who stopped watching trailers and he didn't know Spider-Man was going to be in Civil War.
Yep, did not know he was going to be in Civil War, and he literally yelped in the movie theater when Spider-Man dropped down because somehow he didn't even make the connection when Tony was talking to Aunt May because he didn't know anything about it. So when he finally shows up in costume, and this is the dude who read comics, when he finally shows up in costume with Captain America's shield in hand, he just lost his shit. And I was like, oh my God, I wish I could be you.
Peter shoots Tony's hand with webbing when he's going out to tell Aunt May. Like, how do you not?
Because, you get so conditioned to maybe thinking it's a bootleg something or other.
Got you.
And I think that maybe he thought it was like a bootleg, like Peter, like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You know how like in the, what's her name? Can't remember her name, but the Red Sonja movie that came out in the 80s.
Oh, how that was really Conan 3?
How that was, a Conan-like person played by Arnold Schwarzenegger pops up, but it ain't Conan.
Right.
Maybe he thought that that's what was going on. I don't know.
I got you. No, that is, man, you basically, this day and age, I was telling somebody recently that if you maybe have 48 hours before people are going to start talking about, the latest thing. Like, there are watch parties for, not even that. There are watch parties for The Mandalorian that happen at midnight.
Yeah.
You said, okay, we're going to all watch. And it's to the point where on the days that shows like what we were just talking the other day that WandaVision dropped, and I was like, yeah, man, I'll watch it this weekend. I'm going to take a look at it, but I have purposely not been on Facebook or looked at anything because I don't want to know until I'm totally going to stay off Twitter because I'm pretty sure like if you just open it up, it's a wrap until I watch. You said it was 2 shows that just came, they dropped
1 and 2.
Okay, so I gotta go get at those, but I'm like, I know that I've got today.
Right? Essentially.
Yeah.
Dude, they're spoiling things left and right. Like, I don't think that everybody's in their own little bubbles right now, especially with COVID,
Right.
and everybody's so, because we're isolated, I think that everybody's so quick to think that everybody's on the same timeline right now. And people are literally spoiling things. Like if Mandalorian season finale ends at 12:40 or whatever it is Eastern time, there are people at 12:40 and 1 second tweeting about it. Jeez. Or they're even live tweeting about the damn thing, spoiling it as it goes along. And I can't shit on them for wanting to share anything, but there's a strain of fan out there who gets off on destroying other people's joy.
Yes.
And I've run up against that a few times. Like, I'm not speaking to a person right now.
Oh man, what they spoil on you? What they do?
They spoiled the end of Watchmen for me.
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like I was a week behind because I had a lot of stuff going on at that time. So I could only watch it when I could watch it, but I was ripping through them the best that I could. And so
that hurts my heart, man.
Yeah, man. So Watchmen came out and I was like, okay, I'm going to watch it today. And it was like the day after like everything happened.
Yeah.
And normally for me, Instagram is spoiler free for things. Like if I want to see something get spoiled, I go on Facebook or I go on Twitter. So
Instagram is just for hot, model chicks.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what
exactly. Model Central.
Right.
Or DJ Khaled. That's all that's on Instagram.
Right.
And I'm scrolling and this dude, he puts a spoiler up there about Dr. Manhattan. We'll just say that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, bruh. Like,
why?
This was all I was looking forward to today. And he's like, well, you should have watched it. And I'm like, not everybody, and this is not a knock on anybody, but I was like, everybody ain't on the same timeline as your unemployed ass.
Right. It's common courtesy, man. Okay, so to not to just to, a finish your thought, but just a question for after that. What's the the statute of limitations?
Statute of limitations. Yeah. Okay, I used to say the statute of limitations was 1 week, but the world is moving so fast right now, where we are even questioning if some of us will get to tomorrow. I would say 48-hour grace period. 48-hour grace period. Like I needed to move fast. I'm a huge Baby Yoda Grogu fan.
Right.
And so my girlfriend and I would sit down and we would watch it together. But I was like, they're going to spoil it for me. So I had to go and I powered through the final 3 episodes. And that was almost a month ago.
Okay.
I still haven't told my girlfriend what's going on.
She doesn't listen to this, does she? She's not one of my 7 listeners, is she? Okay,
I don't think so. She doesn't listen to me anyway, so I go on the podcast to listen to me. And it's I just can't imagine being the person that takes away someone's joy like that. Or, like I watched it and I was just like, ah. And could you imagine, remember there was that phenomenon on the internet where people would literally just type first just to see if they would be first in the thread?
Yes.
And that's where we're at with spoilers. Like, I'm the first to spoil it for you. It's like, but what did you do? All you did was just spoil it for someone. Are you the man now? Are you the spoiler king? What does that profit you?
That spreads beyond, man. Just it's funny you say that. I was thinking just this morning. Just a side note, not get right back to Mike. Mm-hmm. That is a mindset that isn't just limited to spoiling things, or like you said, it's first. It is. I think that's tethered to, and this is a completely different podcast, and we can certainly go down this road, on another show. But I think it has more to do with a sense of faux affirmation or false value. Because I was thinking about that, man. I was doing a Peloton ride this morning. We had a 75-minute ride, and we got to the end of the ride, and you're supposed to cool down in that last minute, and I found myself cranking up the resistance and pedaling faster, so that I could win the cool down?
Right. Right. It's not the same thing. It's like when you have like an inner ear infection, you don't take the whole bottle at one time so that you can feel better faster. It's like those instructions are there for a reason, man. Look, I need to get past this ear infection today. I'm gonna take this whole bottle.
This whole bottle. Yeah.
Right.
Bruh, you touched on something there, man. Go ahead and finish your, what you were saying. But you made me think of why am I doing this?
Right.
Yeah.
And, it's like I get that you want to have reactions. I get that you want to have interaction, but don't take anybody else's joy, man.
Yeah.
Like, as far as I'm concerned, spoil the ending of The Greatest American Hero for me. That was 40 years ago, which is also crazy. And,
God. Yeah, it was 40 years.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Yeah.
So, yeah, feel free, spoil that type of thing all you want. Tell me what the end of Avengers Endgame was. I'm good with that. That was a year ago.
Yeah.
But just because you can doesn't mean that you should, Yeah. It's like Chris Rock said, you could probably drive a car with your feet. Doesn't mean you should.
Right.
I could, dude, I just don't get how you go through this thing where it's like, that you're only going to get 8 episodes of The Mandalorian. And each one's going to come at you week to week to week.
Right.
And you look at it and you're like, okay, this is a journey we've all been on. But I'm going to tell you who dies at the end of the journey. Fuck the other 7 weeks that you invested in.
Right.
I'm going to tell you what happens at the end of this. It's just selfish and it's mean, and I don't get it. I just don't get it, man.
It's everything. It's everything that you're talking about. I think it's too. It's again. I think it also alludes to what we were just talking about in terms of the question of value is and actually this will tie into something else I wanted to talk to you about relative to comics. The question of value is unsettled, I believe, man, in society. And you see that playing out in different ways. Not to go, I mean, again, it's a, we're not, we're a handful of days removed, about 10 from the Capitol situation. Yeah. And that's to me, a culmination of the worst parts of feeling like you don't matter, and in that pot getting stirred, by an idiot.
And also the worst parts of feeling like you matter more than anybody else.
Yes. Yeah, that's your response. And it's that mentality that says, I get value out of being first.
Right.
To reply, to when to cool down, to when. And I bring that up because I think everybody is susceptible to it, because all of us are wired to want to feel value. That's why representation matters so much. That's why when I play Miles Morales Spider-Man, I feel a certain kind of way, a little bit different than when I play the other Spider-Man. And it's like, because this is that, we've all said, if I see a spider, let it bite me, because just maybe I might get spider powers. So we all have wanted to be that. And it's what you're really saying is, I want to feel valuable. That to me is part of the draw and the appeal of comics. And when we talk about representation, this was something that I wanted to ask you about. And it's further down in my notes. And what's wild is, man, we've been kicking it for about 90 minutes, and I've gotten to like less than, so we have to do another one of these. I've gotten to next to nothing. A ton of stuff, man, that I was like, I'm looking at this going, that should be enough for an hour. And we got maybe like 2 or 3 of my bullets on this. There's a ton I want to ask you about, but around the bullet point in the question that I put down was, and it's both sides of it. It's a bit rhetorical in a sense, but I would love to get your thoughts on this. And let me break it down. It's, our comics, again, when this is with the awning, of representation, the question of value being unsettled or mismanaged or butchered, as we've seen, as a result of people feeling emotionally a certain type of way. And because representation and heroes and all those things are so prominent and popular right now, one, are comics in general too focused on social justice, or are they not focused enough? And the reason I say that, is because I think you'll have people who want to argue from both sides, of that. And my personal feeling is that it's never wrong to do the right thing. And I think and I've been one, and you've heard me say this in our conversations outside of the pod, while I've been trying to sound it out and figure out where I land, on it. But where I have rested is, it's never wrong to do the right thing. And if we can, I realize that nostalgia is a big deal, because you just talked about it. Like, part of what made you fall in love with DC Comics was their treatment of legacy. And I think that also plays a part when you're talking about representation. It's like, well, wait a minute, we can't have a black Spider-Man. Spider-Man's always been a white dude. He's always been a white teenager, that's never gotten any older than about 25.
Right.
And then, nope, we're going to reboot him. And we're going to make him 15 again.
Right.
So he never ages out past his mid 20s, on that. And, so 15, the poor man has only been alive, 10 years in terms of that. So you can't have, black, because, he's always this, because nostalgia says, and history says this, and then the world changes. And we say, okay, we recognize as a company that diversity actually profits. If you look at the numbers and you look at the studies, the black consumer is right now accounts for, I believe the projections have us in, you're talking about that 30 to 34 demo The projections go out to say the next, 15, 20 years or what have you, like $1.8 trillion in terms of spending potential and capital.
Right.
And so if I'm Sony, if I'm Marvel, if I'm DC, if I'm whomever, I'm looking at that saying, I want that money.
Yeah. Why would you leave that money on the table?
Why would you leave that money on the table? That's 1.8 trillion. If I can appeal to the black consumer, I'm about that. So we're gonna put out Miles Morales Spider-Man for PS5 because I'm trying to get this money.
Yeah.
So to that end, then you say, okay, it is entirely possible to do the right thing and make money, at the same time. But then you get people that are like, you can't do this, you can't do that. And my feeling is that the issue with nostalgia for things where they used to be, the whole mantra of, and not to go too far political, but the whole MAGA, mentality around, well, we want it the way it was. To me, bro, you ever find yourself looking at old stuff going, not just that wouldn't fly today, but the hell did we make it that way to begin with?
Right. No, I know exactly what you mean. So essentially, you're asking.
I'm asking a bunch. That was just.
I got you. So
yeah.
I look at. I hear what you're saying, but everybody who's going, oh, the social justice warriors.
Right.
You're virtue signaling. You're doing all this other stuff. What comics were you reading that I wasn't reading? Superman is Superman. His very first appearances, he's not fighting Brainiac. He's not fighting Lex Luthor. He's fighting people. He's fighting slumlords. He's fighting things that very much humanity wanted to get their hands around. He's fighting against social injustices. One of the very first appearances that Superman has, he is fighting a man who's beating his wife. And he's like, no, you don't put your hands on that woman. He's fighting for coal miners, literally, in some of his earliest appearances. Like, the idea of a supervillain is not a thing at this point. That's what was going on back then. Captain America was fighting the biggest social injustice of the time, Nazism.
Yeah.
Like, people, not just Jews, gay people, people of color, were dying due to Nazism. And these two Jewish young men from, I both believe were both from New York, created this character who wasn't 100% like them. Steve Rogers wasn't Jewish. He was tall and he was blonde and he was white. And he goes, well, this will be palatable for the reader.
Right.
And this blonde, tall guy with a shield becomes their avatar. But he shares their values.
Right.
So these people who were like, well, I don't want any politics in my comics. What world are you living in? What you're telling me, it's not that you don't want politics in your comics. You don't want any politics but yours in your comics.
Wow.
That's what you're telling me. Like, dude.
Wow.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get gaslit. That's what they're telling you. I'll put it to you this way. Frank Miller, who I'm pretty sure I am not on the same political spectrum as he is right now. Um, I'm pretty sure that at one point in time he was a hard right winger.
Okay.
But Frank Miller also taught me what type of American I wanted to be. Because there's a great scene in Daredevil where a U.S. general who's doing some shady shit is like, "Hey, Cap, I just kind of need you to do me a favor. Like, yeah, I get it. It might not be a thing that you want to happen, but America, bro, come on." And Captain America is like, "No, I'm not going to do that." And he's like, "Look, I know that you have your beliefs." And Captain America, standing next to a flag, goes, "I believe in nothing, General, but the American dream."
Wow.
And I remember reading that at like 14 or 15 years old and going, "That's it. I get it now." I could never put my
Mhm.
finger on what I want it to be as far as American. Um, but with that comic, I was like, I want to be someone who's going to make the right call for the better for everyone else, who won't do the easy thing, who won't just look at my interest and put them above everybody else's. Like, I want it to be what was going on in that panel. Um, and that's not social justice warrioring. That's just being a good person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And anybody who has a problem with, to kind of go off on some other things, we've also had a big problem with a lot of misogyny within comics too,
Hmm.
um, where they literally harass women online who were comics editors for eating ice cream.
What?
Yeah, that was a whole
Wait,
thing.
wait,
That was
wait a
a
minute.
whole thing
For eating ice
for
cream?
eating ice cream. Like
Wait,
someone,
so the
yeah.
characters were eating it?
So the
And
long
so
no, so the
yeah.
long story short was there was a former Marvel employee, I can't remember her name, but she loved ice cream sundaes. So a bunch of
Okay.
female staffers from Marvel went out and got ice cream sundaes in her honor and said basically, we're doing this in honor of the person who came before us. And there was a segment of, and I'm not going to call them comic book fans because they are not fans,
Right.
of people who claim to love comics who attack these women simply for just eating ice cream online and harass them to the point where some of them even had to get off of the internet for a little while. And I've I'm not saying I've been great in everything I've done,
Right.
but I've read enough comics to know that Superman loved his mother.
Right.
I know enough about comics to know that Batman loved his mother.
Yeah.
I know that Peter Parker reveres his Aunt May.
Yep.
So if I can read all that and go, hey, I love my mother too.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't be shitting on these women right now. Why would it even occur to me that these women who are going, there was something here before us, and just trying to honor that, why the fuck do I need to say anything about that? Like, so obviously these people are missing something
Yeah.
that everybody else is getting. So amplify the voices of the ones who want to be socially just and are willing to go to war for it, and fuck the fools who just
Hmm.
want to shit on people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't have a problem with social justice at all. Because to be frank, let's be real about it. If it
Yeah.
wasn't social justice, both our black asses would not be sitting here right now talking about social justice.
Facts. Big facts.
So yeah, there's me stepping down off of the soapbox.
Hey man, I asked the question, so and I appreciate the realism. You on it, man. It's funny. You touched a lot of good points, but the nerve that hit is when you said, you know, Superman loved his mother.
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man reveres his aunt.
Yeah.
Batman loved his, his whole mantra is his parents.
Yeah.
And the piece about Cap saying, I believe in nothing but the American dream. And, I think about these heroes, man, that we want to emulate, and what's wild is, man, if you were blessed enough, and that's why I think, man, every generation thinks their generation is the greatest, right? So I'm not saying that anybody else, right? So, but I think about ours, and I think about Gen X in particular, is that we're sort of a bridge generation in that we remember it well when there was no, I can just open up a laptop or pick a device out of my pocket that's supposed to make phone calls, and I can look up anything in the world, right?
Yeah.
We remember when it wasn't that way. Like you said, it alluded to it on one of the prior shows of, shh, I'm on the phone. It's long distance, right? So just even another side note, man. I just got my record player from Amazon yesterday.
Right.
It just showed up. And so I'm, there's always anybody's guess whether or not these vinyl records are going to skip or not. And so I had a couple that are warped, and I'm looking like, okay, I need a penny to put on, it's a, wow. Okay. And I'm like, okay, I just this is what I need to do. And I need to add some weight to this thing.
Right.
And I haven't had that kind of a thought in 100 years.
Yeah.
All of that to say, if you were fortunate enough to be born and get into comics at the time that we did, hell, man, we've talked about this before, how we were raised with a certain type of value.
Right.
Values, man. I'm thinking back to, I laugh when I think about G.I. Joe and how No One Is Half the Battle was required, as was, if you go back and you look at the toys that made us or the cartoons that made us, that Netflix documentary.
Right. Yeah. Love that. Yeah.
They had to add in the little nugget at the end where He-Man would give you the lesson. Right. Because they were like, y'all are basically putting out a 30-minute toy commercial.
Right.
You can't just be doing that. So you got to put something redeeming at the end of this thing. And they were like, well, we should be all right. We can do something where, we'll take the story and we'll say, yeah, this is why you shouldn't do that.
Right.
So we can sell these toys.
Right.
And I'm thinking, man, like, if you go back and you look at the He-Man lessons at the end of all his shows, if you go back and you look at the G.I. Joe, No One Is Half the Battle, there's so much wisdom in those moments. And you look at the comics that come out, man, that hell, man, I'm even thinking about the Spider-Man comic strip that came out in the newspaper. I remember because I clowned this thing when I first saw it, but now I look back on it with more adult eyes. Do you remember when Spider-Man in the newspaper comic strip was dealing with gangs, like actual gangs? No. They had a run, man, where he was dealing with street gangs. I mean, and like, I'm talking like, I don't know that they called them the Bloods and the Crips, but it was basically the Bloods and the Crips.
Right.
And there's a line in a panel that I remember, I just happened across it because I wasn't a frequent aficionado of the Spider-Man, print comic strip.
Mm-hmm.
But I happen to remember coming across this one panel where Spider-Man is trying to appeal, very much like if you remember Meteor Man, where Robert Townsend is making the gangs put the guns down.
Yeah.
So think that image in your mind. Spider-Man is very much in the center of this, talking to gang members, and he says basically the equivalent of, and I'm going to butcher this, we're all homies.
Right.
All of us are homies. You know, don't you get it? We're all homies.
Mm-hmm.
All of this to say, and I remember looking at that at the time, like, nah. But now I go, yeah.
Yeah.
We got this. To your point, how can you read and call yourself a fan of these things and have experienced and consumed these products and not gotten the lessons that it's never wrong to do the right thing?
Right. Exactly.
And that's, man, if I have a mantra that a hill I'm going to choose to die on, it's going to be that. And the biggest piece of that is, and this is something that you've taught me, you can, it's always better to have a point of view that you stand by. You're authentic. We talked about it before we started recording, about, we don't have to code switch as much as we used to, anymore, because of the changes that the world is going through. And I think that, as I think about the lessons that we came up with, what I'm learning in terms of social justice and things is, in this day and age, is we should have never had to. Right. And it's okay to say that. It's okay to have that position. And part of being heroic is embracing that you don't need to be afraid to utter that opinion. Right. And say, exactly. You can absolutely, everybody can eat. War Machine doesn't take away Tony Stark from you.
Exactly.
You feel?
It's not taking anything away from you. John Stewart is not taking the Green Lantern Corps away from you, right, simply by existing. And I get it. I get it to a degree. It's like there's going to be some clumsy moralizing going on while someone's trying to make a greater point about social injustices.
Yeah.
Spider-Man will probably, put it this way, Spider-Man may not always be the correct character to say things with.
Right.
But, and we talked about this before, about representation. That's why you need to have people who look and sound like you to basically sort of tone check sometimes.
Yes.
Go, like, hey, I want to create I want to create an Arab character. I want to do this. But I want to make sure that it's right. Could you just take a look at this? Let me know if I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
Before I go out there and embarrass myself, the company, and comics in general. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I have a problem with is when you feel like, because you're the default, you can speak for everyone. That's where I have a problem. Because, we talked about this a few months ago. Remember when we would watch Thundercats? And they were cats. Okay? They were cats. That's all they were. They were Thunder cats. Cats who happened to be one with the thunder or whatever the hell it was.
Right.
But we knew when we heard Panthro.
Yes.
And we looked at Panthro, who didn't have the mane of hair like the others, who was a little bit bigger than the others, a little bit physical than the others, had the quote-unquote baldy.
Yep.
And the way he came out of his mouth, we were like, that's the Black Thundercat.
That's the Black Thundercat, yeah.
Right.
We all knew it.
Right. And we were like, Panthro can be ours, but Panthro can be anyone else's. And this is also what we talked about because you do voice work
Right.
because of that beautiful baritone that you have. And we talked about this. Could you imagine when we were kids if we were sitting there watching the Super Friends and Black Vulcan didn't sound like us?
Mm,
Would we still not have soft spots? It's one thing to be seen, but it's another thing to be heard.
that's
Um,
powerful.
yeah.
Yeah.
And, thank God somebody went that extra mile and said, yeah, I actually want a black person or person of color to actually voice this character and go so that we could go, we've got something.
Yeah.
Could you imagine um what Schoolhouse Rock, what verb I get my
Mm,
thing in action would be
mm,
if it were sang by the same guy who sang uh God, what's his name? Bob Duro. If he sang three is a magic number. If he sang verb I get my
mm,
thing in action the same way that he sang three is a magic number.
mm.
Like we saw ourselves, man.
Yeah.
And but also we felt included in that whole thing.
It's
Like,
why we love it. I mean,
right,
don't get me
that's why
wrong.
we love
Schoolhouse
it.
Rock is dope, but like, let's
Yeah,
keep it 100. Verb is our dude.
that's our
It's
dude.
that's our dude.
Like, you could
Yeah.
walk up to a black person who might have a little bit of gray in their stuff, and you
Yep.
go, "I get my thing in action,"
Yeah.
and they'll be like, "Verb, that's what's happening,"
Right.
and it's like, "Thank you, we've got that." But you
Yeah.
know what? If a white person saw that, if an Asian person saw that and was grooving to it, we can't take that away from them.
I wouldn't want to.
Yeah,
I want them grooving to it. Yeah, come on,
right,
get in on this.
exactly. Get
And
down
real
with me,
talk, man.
bro. Get down with me.
That's
Let's
that's
get our
always been
thing
us.
in
Yeah.
action.
You notice, man, that's always been us.
Right.
That's always been black folks, man. You go back to uh high school with us, and the I'm thinking back to, I don't know, I can't remember what the demographic was or the breakdown was racially at Wilson. I know that there's what would you say, probably what,
I'd
65 to,
say,
35, something like that.
yeah, I seem to remember like Wilson was predominantly white, but only maybe it's because it was the first time I ever went to school with a lot of white kids.
That was my
Um,
same experience. Like, yeah, it
so
was, yeah,
it just felt like there were a lot of them. Maybe there
yeah.
weren't. I don't remember. But
I'm,
I just simply remember that at least it felt like we were all on the same playing
yes,
field to a
yes,
degree.
yeah,
Um, like no one ever told us when we were in high school, like here are the number of white kids who graduate versus the number of black kids who are going to
right,
graduate. It was like, no, Wilson has a 90% graduation rate,
right,
and here are the numbers of kids who actually go to colleges. Like
yes,
there was never a breakdown like that. Um, and that was mainly because nobody ever told us we couldn't. And
yeah,
there's a lot of people right now who are telling people that they shouldn't or they can't. And I truly hope that nobody's like listening to those folks.
yeah,
Um, because again, like we were when we were talking about other things, like why would you take away someone's drive? Why would you take away someone's joy?
mm, mm,
Um, I just don't get that. I don't know why you feel like your voice needs to be the loudest and the only one heard. Um, and let's go back to what I was talking about, the type of American I want to be.
yeah,
Like, I'll freely admit, call it socialism or whatever. If I know that by my paying a little bit more taxes, some baby ain't going to go to sleep hungry, I'm okay with that. Call that socialism or whatever. But that's as much from Spider-Man as anything. Where it's just like, that's what Spider-Man would do. You know? It's simple to me. It's like if Peter Parker had $2 in his pocket and that $2 was all he had, and he looked down at a child who didn't know where his next meal was coming from, Peter would pull those $2 out of his pocket and go, "Hey, let's go get you a sandwich."
Yeah.
And that's just what he would do. Peter wouldn't be sitting there going, "Well, let's talk about the racial injustices, and let's talk about how it might be perceived this white man giving let's say a young Latin kid $2 to go get a meal. Is that social justice? Is he a social justice warrior now? No, he's just being a good human.
Good dude, yeah. He's just
Just
doing
being a
right.
good dude.
Yeah.
And we've gotten so politicized to the point where just trying to be a good dude looks like a political statement now.
Damn. That's powerful. That's powerful, man. You've helped me see so much on this. You've kind of been with me on my journey on this and finding my voice around these things. Again, that's another podcast, but I love how you've put it. And I love the fact that this is why these stories, these characters are so important, because they get to be the best versions of us.
Yeah.
It's and to your point, that's why I love how you put it, man. It's not social justice. It's just doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's really all it is. And I am finding too, man, that there is, if it doesn't pass the eye test, if you look, I'll put it this way: if I were to go to a 4-year-old and show them, not that I would, but if I did, and say, "Hey, come here, 4-year-old. I'm gonna turn on the TV and I'm gonna show you people attacking the U.S. Capitol. Does that look right to you?"
Mm-hmm.
4-year-old's gonna say no.
Yeah.
And it's really that simple, man. It's you go to a 4-year-old and you ask them what they want to be, they'll give you an answer that's definitive, that is not tainted by obstacles. What do you want to be when you grow up? A fireman? Yeah. What do you want to be? That's why I always, when I'm coaching up folks at work, I'm always trying to tell them, like, if you're trying to figure out what you want to be when you grow up, pretend you're 4. What's the answer that 4-year-old you would have given? Because that's the purest answer that you have in terms of what your passion is, without all of the extra stuff. And I believe that the right thing can be defined best by your childlike self, because kids, there's no agenda.
Right.
A 4-year-old is going to say, this is why, again, not to get too deep or religious with it, but Jesus says, be like these little kids.
Yeah.
Be like little children, because they're not destroyed. No child comes out of the womb racist. They're taught that. And the only time, man, we don't do the right thing is when we're afraid of what we'll lose by doing so, man. And I've heard so many stories here in the last year around people who did not speak up, and people who noticed that, like, hey, I'm noticing who's being real quiet right now, around certain things. And I don't want, to me, I don't know if it's as bad, but it's darn near as bad. To me, it goes back to yet another lesson learned from a comic book character. I go back to Peter's interaction with Iron Man in Civil War, when he says his spin on the great responsibility tagline, which is, when you can do what I can do and you do nothing, then when things go bad, it's your fault. That to me is the driving force now for my mentality of, it's never wrong to do the right thing.
Right.
Because if you've got the power to be able to have a voice, in these uncertain times, as it were, and you silence your voice, or you have the ability to be in a position to put out characters that are representative, because you know the downstream impacts it's going to have, and the influence it'll have, and the impact it'll have, and you don't do that, and you don't have that, it's just as bad in many ways as if you had caused, the situations, where, of saying, well, we're not going to do anything.
Right.
To me, it falls into that same place. Being voiceless at it's time out for that. It's time out for doing all the negative and the wrong and those things. And again, just to tether it back, these aren't new messages. Right. They've been around since the beginning of time with heroes. And I hadn't really thought about that when you mentioned that Superman was stopping people from beating their wives.
Yeah.
It's always been there, hiding sort of in plain sight, if you will.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic that, we're leading up towards MLK Day, and while you were talking, everybody loves to throw MLK quotes up,
right?
The ones that fit their narrative. But I think the most, like, this, to me, this is like some superhero-ish stuff that he said, where he said, we will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the hateful words and actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people. And to me, that, everybody likes to take a crap on what they call social justice warrioring, or I can never say that word, or virtue and virtue signaling. But guess how you get to those words? You get to them by caring about something enough to want to defend it and believe that other people should have it.
Yeah.
As far as like justice and a society,
Yeah.
Justice within a society. So all that to say, I get why people are upset, and I get why people are frustrated, but I will never, ever, ever lose myself within all of that, because, and this is a weird thing to say, as much of a lot of my morality has come from my mother, believing in Jesus and believing in Superman. It's pretty simple to me.
Yeah. They're kind of metaphors for one another, and so that makes sense. I mean, like, Superman is basically Christ. It's like, I mean, shoot, man, if you look at the Brandon Roth, go back, man, and look at the trailers for the Brandon Roth Superman Returns, and it's basically, messianic.
Yeah.
In the way that they do it with the father, the son comes from the father and all that. Yeah, they were over it.
No, it doesn't need to be all about that. It's like more plain catching, less, trying to show me the metaphors, in my opinion.
Gotcha.
Like, I get it, Superman is more, to me, is more Moses than anything.
Gotcha.
But, show him. I'm much more interested in seeing Superman be kind to a child, or
Mm.
Superman being kind to a homeless person or unhoused person, um, than I am watching him float above everybody and go, "Oh, I see the Jesus parallel."
Right.
Yeah, it's just that's just me. That's just me.
Funny enough, as you said it, the thought that occurred to me is that the first two examples you gave are actually better Jesus parallels than the floating above.
Hmm.
Yeah. The whole point of his coming was to not float above, but to become, to be able to touch that child. So yeah, you are on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that man was in the dirt.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't know where we're going with all this, but
Well, it makes sense that where we would culminate would be if your goal is to do the right thing, that you'd end on Superman and Jesus. That's where else is that going to end? It doesn't
right,
get more doing the right thing than those two.
yeah.
Funny enough, man, and I'll say this, and then I'll let you go. So I've dominated your time for 3 hours, man, and I appreciate and we didn't get to half of what I want to do. So we
Well,
got
you
to
know
do
where to find me for the other half. So,
absolutely, yeah. Um
'cause I'm fascinated.
you are fascinating, yeah, yeah. As you say, man, you stayed pretty.
I stayed
Every
pretty.
year, yeah, you stay
My
pretty every
shoulders
year.
stayed broad, and my face stayed pretty. You're welcome, America.
I don't even remember the point I was gonna make. So I'm gonna just let it go there and put the theme music probably about here when I'm editing and ride it out, man. Is there anything, man, that you want to say at the end of this piece? This has been man, I didn't know when we came up with this of wanting to talk about your love of comics and your passion of comics that this would be the direction and all the things that we would get to touch on. But man, this filled my soul today, man. So just thank you.
I appreciate you saying that, man. Would I want to say anything to people right now? Yeah, without getting too cosmic, I know that people are going through a lot right now, and there's a lot of loneliness, and there's a lot of confusion, and there's just a lot of self-doubt going on out there. Like, maybe people are feeling like they're the crazy ones for, believing that something better can come. I get it. Like, there are days when I'm down, and there are days when I'm just not quite there. But just, if you can, hold on for the promise. Like, even the promise of a better tomorrow, man. It's the crap you're going through right now. Give yourself a shot and say, hey, I can work through this, but let me just put in the work to get through this. So, just be kind to yourselves. Try and listen to yourselves. Listen to what you need, and just try your best to be good.